Welcome to the MMA Fan Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Stu and Blake.
Hello and welcome to the MMA Fan Show. I am Blake Harrison. Joining me, as always, is Stuart. Stu, I will get on to you in a minute. Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Are you all right?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too
Lovely.
bad.
Well, if you've not already seen, we're joined by a guest today, and we're going to be talking about all UFC news going on at the moment. What's going on with John Jones? Is he retiring? Chandler is no longer fighting Conor. He's fighting Charles Oliveira. We'll dip into a little bit of that. But first, we need to talk to one of the brightest young stars of British MMA. It's Nathan Fletcher is on the show. Nathan, thanks so much for coming on, mate.
Yes, boys. Thank you for having me back. It's been a while since we last spoke, hasn't it? So there's been a lot that's happened since then in my career, and I'm glad to be back speaking to you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, mate. Well, that's what we're here to talk about, because so many of us are so used to seeing you on an absolute tearing Cage Warriors, and then all of a sudden it popped up on our social media feed that Nathan's going at the Ultimate Fighter House. And tell us a little bit about getting the call for that, and then just tell us a little bit. We'll get to the actual fight and the strange outcome that come of the whole experience. But tell us a little bit about getting the call and what it's like going into that house. So many big personalities and egos. Like, how was it?
Yeah, that was a crazy experience. Do you know what I mean? It's something I'm going to definitely remember for the rest of my life. The whole process from finding out to then doing all the interviews. You have to. Obviously, it wasn't just based off fighting skill list, because it's like a reality TV show. There was all interviews, and you had to fill out these mad applications, answering crazy questions about yourself to see if you were going to be a good personality fit for the show. So the whole process was mad. I've never done anything like that, and I probably wouldn't do it again. If you paid me millions of pounds, I'd struggle to go back in that house and do it again. But it was, once in a lifetime experience.
What was the most challenging aspect of being in the house? You reckon you wouldn't go in there if you were paid. So what was the worst aspects of being in the house?
I think the biggest thing I struggled with was just not speaking to everybody back home, because you literally go in and you take your phone off you before you enter the house. There's no television, so we're not up to date with anything that's going on really in the outside world. Like, all my teammates fought about a week or two into me being into the house. I had no idea how any of them had gotten on. I had no communication with my girlfriend. I had no communication with my brothers, all my friends back home. It was pretty insane. It's kind of like life stops for that time you're there, and you're just in this bubble of like testosterone and athletes all competing against each other, and nothing in the outside world matters. It was a real strange experience, and it took some getting used to coming out of the house and going back to reality, having your phone and interacting with everybody, and see even just like social media, having a break from that and then coming back to it. That was quite difficult to adjust to after coming out of the show. But it was like it wasn't all bad. There was a lot of ups as well. You know what I mean? It was a great experience, but it was just challenging, definitely.
It sounds like the plot of like a zombie movie or something, that like they're all in the house and unbeknownst to them, they're in the desert in Vegas, and then like 16 fighters emerge and zombies have taken over America and they've got to find their way through. It's like, wasn't it Jared Leto was doing some kind of meditation retreat, and then he came out after being isolated from the whole world for a few weeks. It came out, COVID was in the middle of and he was like, what's happened? There's a pandemic.
So, yeah, well, I was saying that, like, I wouldn't have known, because we literally, that's how, like, excluded you are from the outside world. There's no contact with anything. We couldn't even listen to the radio on the way to the gym, because they film you're traveling to the gym in the coach. So it's all in that bubble, and it's quite intense, because obviously you've got to compete against these men that you're living with. You're also trying to form friendships and, like, get by the time that you're there, but knowing that you might have to fight someone. So, like, even in particular, Gigamantis, the guy who I ended up fighting in the finals, I didn't fight him on the show. We were pretty pally in the house, do you know what I mean? So that was weird, then getting his name thrown to me a few months after coming out of it all, and being like, oh, that's strange. He's kind of someone I consider a friend, and now I've got to fight him. So it was a very unique experience, and I can see why, like, everybody who does the show says the same sort of thing. Like, in it, they hated it and they wanted to just get home and get out, but then years later they look back and they're happy they did it, and it was like, good memories and stuff. So, but yeah, strange times.
We need to interrupt the show to tell you all about our sponsor. We are sponsored by Fat Candy. That's freeze-dried sweets. What's your favourite, Blake?
Skittles!
I ain't gonna lie. I opened a little bag this morning. They sent the Pick-a-Mix bags over. They've sent 4 over with the Happy Gilmore jersey and the sunglasses and stuff like that. We smashed one bag, I think, on the last one, and I bust open the second bag today just to have some Skittles.
Selfish man.
Sorry,
the
mate.
Skittles are delicious. It's all delicious. Freeze-dried sweets is where it's at. And you can get a discount if you put in Sweet MMA, that's SWEET MMA, when you go to Fat Candy's website. You can get a discount, you can get money off, and then you can enjoy all the skittly, sugary, pick-and-mixy, freeze-dried goodness.
Absolutely. Go check them out on the website. Other than that, go give them a follow on the socials. They're tagged in all of our posts, so go give them some love over there. Fat Candy, proud sponsors of the MMA Fan Podcast. Let's get back to the show. Nice. You talk about the challenges of being in the house, and then when you got to fight, now tell me if this is true. Was you fighting with a broken leg?
So I think I had a stress fracture potentially entering the show. Now, obviously, I didn't divulge any of that information to anybody before entering it, but I'd had a few issues with it previous, like months prior, to be fair. And then I thought entering that it was all resolved. Evidently, it wasn't. So it was one of the first kicks that I took in the first round. Khan car kicked me, and I knew from that point that something wasn't right. Like, I definitely didn't think I broke my leg. Do you know what I mean? With obviously, I've got adrenaline and everything going, and I'm in the heat of battle. But yeah, from about a minute into that first round, I had a near enough a clean break in my fibula. So, yeah.
And you carried on fighting. I mean, that is just, obviously, stupid question. How much do you think it impacted the fight?
Yeah, I think it definitely had quite a big impact. It's interesting because if you didn't know that I broke my leg in it, it's really hard to tell because I don't look that compromised. But there's certain positions I can see. For example, I took his back in the second round, and I kind of had my legs crossed like this, where I'm normally pretty good in that position. You know, you've seen a lot of fights on cage where he's like standing rear naked choke is pretty much my forte. Getting a body triangle and attacking the choke from there, and I couldn't lock a body triangle because of the pressure it was putting on my leg. There's other positions where I tried to shoot in and kind of fell over my own feet because it just wasn't quite working properly, because it was broke, obviously. But yeah, I think that, do you know what? I don't know, maybe it's just my ego, but I think if we'd have gone into a third as well, I could have maybe finished it even with a broken leg. So that's how confident I was that I could have still got the job done. But obviously, things work out the way he did, and I got beat in the decision. But yeah, definitely impacted the fight.
And you were coached by, one of the greatest female mixed martial artists of all time in Valentina Shevchenko. I mean, what did you learn from her and her team? Is there anything that was interesting in terms of the style in which they were coaching, or did you learn any kind of tidbits from her whilst chatting to her?
Yeah, I mean, more mindset stuff I think I took away from it. She's very, very driven and very focused. Valentina's big on like your energy and not letting anything sort of encroach on that during a fight. So she keeps like a very small group of people around her, and she's extremely focused, which I really like how dialed in she gets towards a fight. The actual like technical aspects of the training, like, I mean, who am I to say? It's Valentina Shevchenko. She's one of the best in the world, but I didn't necessarily take to that too well. It was quite different to the way we do things in Next Gen. She's very old school approach. So you probably saw with the no water, she wouldn't let us drink water during the training sessions, and it was quite. I sound like a bit of a bitch saying this, but it's quite a lot of hard work, like leading right up to the fight, where normally I would have a period of tapering off and, trying to get my body recovered after the training camp before fight week, if that makes sense. But yeah, look, who am I to say? She's obviously one of the greatest to do it. And mentally, I definitely took a lot of positives from it. In terms of the actual technique, though, I wasn't, I don't think I'll be adding too much of that into my next few fights, you know what I mean?
And to go from things not going obviously to plan, going in the Ultimate Fight House and coming out there with a leg break, how good was it to then get the call that you're fighting in the UFC?
Yeah, it's just why the sport's so crazy, because that was the biggest opportunity of my career, and I was definitely nowhere near in the best possible like shape and things to take that opportunity. if that makes sense. So I'd had the injury, I'd had a decent amount of time off to recover that, and I was kind of just getting back into the gym. If I'm being deadly honest now, I can say this because the fight's happened. I was in nowhere near like good condition to be taking a fight. Like even with the 6 weeks I had to prepare, I was essentially coming off the couch. Do you know what I mean? So, but that being said, I've done a lot of fight camps in my career. I've been able to get in shape for quick turnaround and stuff like that. And I knew that 6 weeks was plenty of time. I've got 12 years of training behind me. So if I can't get in shape in 6 weeks, for obviously an opportunity like the UFC, then I can't. I shouldn't be doing the sport anyway. So I dove headfirst into a fight camp, crammed in what I could, and obviously it paid off now because I got the win. So.
And that didn't quite go to plan either, did it? Because you ended up meant to fight, and then that got moved back another week. So was that something you just thought, I've got another week of, I guess, training, or you're now stuck in the party capital of the planet, but you can't have a beer, you can't really eat. Like, how did you sort of feel that week?
That was such a strange experience, honestly. Just the way I've gone into the UFC, I never expected my journey to be like that. You know what I mean? Especially the fight and then it getting pushed back. I was very lucky that the UFC obviously saw some value in that fight and wanted to keep it on the card. So basically, I had a staph infection at the end of my fight camp. I was probably pretty run down from trying to cram a full camp into those short few weeks and run my body down a bit. Got a staph infection. I dealt with it. I'd taken the antibiotics and things to cure it. But when I got to Vegas, the Athletic Commission ended up pulling me from the fight. It was actually the day after the fight. I got pulled like 30 minutes before. So I stayed in Vegas. Thankfully, Adam Cole, my training partner, stayed with me. So I was able to and we had access to the PI, which was great. So every single day we were going and just fine tuning the game plan and going over things. So after it all, I can see that it was probably a benefit to me. And also, I'm a natural bantamweight, so making weight featherweight twice was easy. It was comfortable. Whereas my opponent was a featherweight, so I think that probably had an effect on him as well, having to do the big weight cut twice. So in the moment, I was absolutely devastated. I was like, what's going on here? I can't catch a break. And then it's flipped on its head and it's ended up being a positive thing. So, and I'll definitely never forget my UFC debut now after all that madness.
Fantastic. You are planning on going to bantamweight, though, right? You're going to be a UFC bantamweight, not a featherweight.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to let Luke take over the UFC featherweight division, and I'll take care of the.
Can't wait to see it. But how were the nerves? I mean, stepping into the octagon for the first time, as you say, it was a tumultuous journey. It was up and down, everything that you've just mentioned, the postponement, all that stuff. When you're in the building and when you're walking out to the octagon, how were the nerves? Were they there, or were you able to kind of deal with them quite well?
I've always been someone who's been able to perform on fight night. I don't know what it is, but I mean, unlike every fighter, I get nervous in camp when you get your contract, when you get your opponent, and I obviously feel that like little butterflies that you get. But when it comes to the actual night of the fight, I don't know what it is. I'm just very good with dealing with that pressure. It doesn't seem to overwhelm me. Like I can pretty much go through the routine of my warm up, the walkout, and just stay present in the moment. And I've never really struggled with like being overwhelmed by an event. If you understand what I'm saying there. So it's like, obviously I was nervous, but it just didn't have that sort of. I feel like the nerves were good. I feel like they fueled me to go and perform. I don't feel like it took away from my performance at all. So it was all good emotions that I was feeling.
Yeah, and there were moments in the fight in round one where it looked tricky. You got him down. He looked like he cut you with an elbow from his back at one point. Then when you were grappling around, he got you in like. It didn't look like it was. They were saying on the commentary, it didn't look like a kind of almost reverse triangle sort of position that he had on you. And they were saying it looked more very, very uncomfortable than it did like you were going to be in danger of being choked out or anything like that. So in those moments, how did you feel? Were you like, oh shit, I'm bleeding. Oh no, I'm in a bad spot here. Like, how were you coping with those moments?
Yeah, it's literally like you say, you just kind of, it's mad in a fight. There's so many thoughts that go through your head each minute. Like, the elbow cracked my nose. That's where I was bleeding from. He cracked my nose with the elbow. And then when he actually locked that reverse triangle, it was right across my nose where he just hit. So it was definitely uncomfortable. I wasn't getting choked from it, so I was okay. And I actually remember hanging out in that spot with like my arm above my head. And I was thinking, I bet this looks proper awkward on the telly right now. I bet everyone back home's looking at me. What's going on here? So, and it did. When I watched the fight back, I'm like all stretched out and my arms up here. And yeah, it looks uncomfortable. but I wasn't in threat of getting finished. So I was just thinking, ride out this position, try to get to a better position, and yeah, it's mad. But that's the thought that was in my head. So I bet this looks fucking proper weird.
But I mean, you came through it. You did incredibly well and got the arm triangle. I think it was at the start of round 2. It did look like you came out there ready to go, and he maybe, I don't know if he just gassed his legs out from that position or something else, but you seem to be able to, without taking away from your work, it seemed relatively easy in round 2 for you. You know, you were able to dominate him and get that tap quite quickly. What's the emotions like when you're like, I've done it, I've won the debut? Because we've seen fighters, very talented fighters, get into their UFC debut, they lose one. The one that comes to mind at the moment is Magomed Ankalaev. Like, he's not lost a UFC fight since his debut against Paul Craig, which he was dominating until the last second. Then he got triangled and that was it. But lots of fighters that do well still lose their debuts because it is a whole new ball game going into the UFC. What's the emotions like when you're like, I've done it, I've won the debut?
It's almost just like that. It's crazy. It takes a while to sink in. You know, as soon as you get the submission, I stood up. I always chat a load of rubbish after a fight anyway, because you're just full of adrenaline. So I go up to the camera and I'm like, I'm here to stay on the man. Who wants it? So after all that, I calmed down. It was, there was a moment actually before Herb raised my hand, and he showed it on the Fight Pass on the stream of it, where I just closed my eyes and like took a couple of deep breaths. And I was just kind of me processing the last few weeks of everything that had happened, all the setbacks I'd had. And because it's crazy, the emotions. Like, even before that fight, I'm thinking, like, what's going on here? I've had the staph infection. They've pulled the fight. They pushed me back. Is this even going to happen? I still had the scar on my arm from the staph. I was thinking, are the doctors going to have an issue with this? Like, there's so many factors before actually getting into the cage and getting it done. So, like, the absolute feeling of relief when it goes your way and it all turns out all right. It's almost indescribable, to be honest. But yeah, it's a great feeling.
Did you find you get sort of starstruck in any of these sort of scenarios? I know there's obviously big personalities at Next Gen, and we'll talk about the gym in a moment. But you're going into the PI and stuff like that. Like, there must be some, you know, UFC legends floating about in there. And you just said Herb Dean lifted my hand, and it's like, are you not thinking, shit, that's Herb Dean?
Yeah, I'm definitely. Literally, that was how I was reacting. I was like, oh my God, it's Herb. And I saw Michael Bisping. I was like, oh, Mikey D, no way. And then he was interviewing me. It is crazy because these are all the things that I've dreamed of since being a kid. Like, I'm just a fan of the sport. Do you know what I mean? I've been watching MMA since I was like 14. I'm 26 now, so I'm 12 years into it. And it's like all these personalities and people, even in the PI, I'm rubbing shoulders with, like, Cody Garbrandt is a big one for me, because starting out in my career being a bantamweight, I always looked up to him. I loved his fighting style, especially when he won the belt off Cruz, things like this. So just seeing him and then speaking to him like a normal person is crazy. Aljamain Sterling was another one. Diego Lopez, we got the pleasure to train with him, you know, in his gym. So it's insane. It's like a dream come true. But then when you're doing it, you realize all these people that you idolize and look up to, they're just the same as you. They just enjoy that lifestyle and chasing their dream of being a UFC champion as well. So it was it was a cool experience. The whole trip, I'm going to remember it for the rest of my life, definitely.
Well, look, can we talk about Next Gen a little bit? Because, you know, we saw Luke get another ridiculous win at the weekend in Cage Warriors. Surely he's got to get the call soon, right? And what's the vibe like at the moment? I mean, Paddy's on a tear, and, you know, you mentioned Adam and Liam, and there's so many big personalities in that gym. Like, what's going on?
Do you know what? I said this in another interview. Like, I've been getting asked this same question about the vibe in Next Gen for like 4 years now. Like, and genuinely, I feel like we're just.
I think it's the third time I've asked you as well.
Yeah. You know what? But
You've got no new questions. You just recycles questions.
Oh, no. But honestly, that's a testament to how well the gym's doing. And we have been on this tear since going back to around about 2020, when sort of Cage Warriors were doing the lockdown shows. Paddy had just been signed. Molly was sort of doing her thing in the UFC. And I feel like we've just been building on it year after year. And it's an infectious environment because everybody's achieving what they want to achieve. Everybody's working hard. We're all helping each other. It's just kind of like a compounding effect, and it just keeps getting more and more and more. And now I'm in the UFC. I'm pretty sure Luke's in the UFC. There's not a chance that he's not getting signed after that performance. So there's 4 of us now. And like I said, there's other guys knocking on the door. Adam Cullen will be there pretty soon. Liam Gittins, I think, is probably 1 fight away himself from getting signed. So it's for a relatively small gym. Do you know what I mean? We're doing crazy big things, and the atmosphere reflects that in the gym. Everybody's just positive all the time, in a great mood. So it's unreal to be part of Next Gen. I'm very lucky that I found them about 8 years ago now when I first went to the gym.
That's great. I mean, as I say, they're doing so well at the moment, and the guy leading the charge, it feels like, is Paddy, coming off that big win over Bobby Green, which again,
King Green, Blake.
King Green. I apologise, King Green. We'll have to call Paddy the Kingslayer now. So he made it look easy. What's next for Paddy? Because I mean, look, just to peel the curtain back a bit, this might go out in a week or two's time, in which case the Paris card will have already happened. But for us recording this now, Paris is 2 days away. You've got Moicano, who's been speaking a lot about Paddy, and Benoit Saint-Denis, who's also in that division, that is, a phenomenal fighter, really exciting. What do you think is next for Paddy?
So I think in an ideal scenario, I think that Moicano will get the job done this weekend. And hopefully,
You think so?
Well, I think it's possible. I mean, I'm talking ideal scenario for Paddy and for RG, So I think because the fight with Moicano and Paddy makes more sense because there's already a bit of history between them as back and forth. They've kind of verbally agreed to fight each other already. Yeah. So I believe that it's going to be a close fight. I think either man could get that done out of Benoit and Moicano. But ideal scenario for us, Moicano gets the job done. It's probably going to be a war the way those two fight, but hopefully he doesn't take too much damage and Paddy fights him at the end of the year in December. Now that would be an ideal scenario, I believe. And I can get on the undercard on one of the prelims.
Yeah. Is that what you'd like next? That's still a fight before the end of the year?
Yeah, definitely. I would like to go out again. I've hardly got any damage. Like I said, he cracked my nose, but other than that, I'm already back training. So that would be ideal scenario for me anyway. And I know Paddy wants to fight Moicano as well. So that would be literally perfect. And then why not throw Luke on the card as well? Get all three of us.
Let's do it.
Any chat about Beneil Dariush for Paddy? Because I think that's a possible fight.
That's the one I want. That's the fight I want.
Yeah. Well, that's the other one that is getting speculated there. And I think the grappling exchanges between them would be very interesting. So that's another one. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any other names that would make too much sense, to be honest. It's got potentially the winner of this weekend or, Beneil Dariush. And time frame wise, I know Paddy would like to squeeze one more in this year, but he's also in a position where he doesn't have to fight. Do you know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. Selfishly, I want him to fight at the end of the year so I can get on the undercard.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we want to talk about the fact that Conor's now no longer fighting Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler is now fighting Oliveira. So 2 questions for you there, Nave. Like, how do you see that fight going? And do you think we'll see Conor fight in the UFC again?
So the first question, I think, to be honest, I don't see the fight going too dissimilar from the first fight he had. I think that Chandler's a very explosive, dangerous guy. He hits hard, but Oliveira is so durable. And I think that he's been a lot more active over the last couple of years, where Chandler hasn't been in the cage since was Poirier's last fight, which was...
I think it might have been. I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I'll find that out, but carry on.
Well, it's pretty long time ago. And I think that Chandler... I see Oliveira getting it done, definitely. I think that Chandler, like I said, he's explosive. He's a great athlete. Technically, maybe not the most superior fighter. Poirier submitted him, took his back, rear naked choke. Oliveira, I believe, has the durability to withstand the crazy athleticism that Chandler brings. And then I think he'll find his openings and either submit him or knock him out again. So that's how I see that fight going. And with regards to McGregor, like, I'm a big McGregor fan. Do you know what I mean? When I was coming up in the sport, he was... For European MMA, he's done so much, and he's kind of made the sport so much bigger over here for guys like me now coming in. When I started doing MMA, nobody had a clue what MMA was around here. And then now, how I explain it to people who don't know is, do you know Conor McGregor? And they're like, yeah. So it's the sport he does. So he's an absolute icon. He's a legend. But you see the way he's carrying on, and like he's always seems to be off his bonnet and he out partying. So he's not living the lifestyle of an athlete anymore. And I don't blame him. He's obviously he's crazy rich. He's a mega superstar. He's done everything there is to do in the sport. He was the first double champ, and he'll go down in the history books as a legend. So whether or not he's got the motivation there to go through a hard training camp and put himself mentally in the right place to fight, I just don't really see it happening.
Yeah. It's a lot. What you guys go through so much, and as you say, when you've earned that kind of crazy money and achieved so much, where your legacy in the sport sort of speaks for itself in a lot of ways as well. The motivation to fight is probably hard to get back. But you were absolutely right. Chandler's last fight, Dustin Poirier, in November of 2022, which he lost. And just looking back at it, his last 4 fights, Poirier lost, Tony Ferguson a win, Justin Gaethje a loss, Charles Oliveira a loss. So, yeah, it's hard to imagine him maybe coming back after this layoff and beating Charles Oliveira. But he was so close to beating him in that first fight. It was like, it looked like he had him. And he just maybe rushed in and that start of round 2 and then got clipped. So I think either way, it'll be a really exciting fight. I think whatever way that fight goes, I don't think it goes the distance, and I think it'll be incredibly exciting.
I think with most of Charles Oliveira's fights, it looks like he's going to get finished by someone. Like, you see it with Gaethje hurt him, Poirier hurt him. All these guys seem to do damage to him, but getting him out of there is a whole other ball game. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like he's durable enough, and he's been more active. He's been fighting top level guys. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Chandler's sat out since 2022, and he's coming off a loss. So I know inactivity matters as well, because I've had periods of time in my career where I've had 15, 18 months out of the cage, and it definitely changes things up a little bit getting back in there. When you're used to firing out fight after fight after fight, you get so much more comfortable with the whole process of fight week, cutting weight, competing. So I would say that the cards are stacked in Oliveira's favour. And
he took the gamble, didn't he, Chandler? Because basically he was going to fight another fighter that's been out the cage for what feels like forever, and going to get paid hugely for it. And now he's possibly got a more dangerous fight with a more active fighter, and he's probably not going to earn anywhere near the Conor dollars.
You can take probably out of that for sure. For sure it's more dangerous, and for sure he isn't earning the same money.
Yeah, you got to feel for him. He took the gamble, didn't he, and tried to hang on for the Conor fight.
Understandably, but I mean, it's just not worked out for him. Let's go to your division now. You're the bantamweight division. We've just seen Merab beat Sean O'Malley. And Sean's come out with a couple of weird things since. Like, I don't know if you've seen this, but he's basically come out saying, I won rounds 1, 3, and 5. I'm still the champ. I'll fight Umar in the summer. We've seen him do similar stuff to this in the past, where he lost to Marlon Vera, but then said, no, I'm still undefeated because he kicked the nerve, and like, I don't know why he thinks that's not legit, but whatever. How do you feel about the fight? Do you believe Merab won, or do you agree with Sean? And also, how do you feel about Sean's reaction to it on social media, saying, no, it's all a load of nonsense, I'm still champ?
Yeah, so in terms of the fight, I've only watched it once. I watched it the morning after the fight happened, and I scored it for Merab, definitely. I think that I'd have to go back and see it as a judge. I know they scored damage. It's all different criteria what they base it off now, but I think that every average set of eyes can see Merab dominated the majority of the rounds. So I would say he did win. With Sean, you never know if he's just trolling and just trying to get a reaction and build his following even further, or if he's being serious. Now, with the Chito Vera stuff, I actually used to kind of understand where he was coming from, because it was like, he felt like he didn't lose down to his skill set. It wasn't like he was beat by a better man. He was compromised. And so I kind of understand that, although it is a loss on his record. And then you saw he rematched Chito and completely schooled him. So I can kind of see where his mind was there. With this one, I don't really see, he hasn't got a leg to stand on for that. I believe that it was, it was a pretty dominant performance. And I think he's probably just trolling. But you never know. Fighters are delusional. Do you know what I mean? And we kind of have to be a little bit, because you have to believe in your own hype, and really you have to be quite egotistical, which is why it's a mad thing trying to battle with that, because you're trying to also remove your ego and see things for what they are, but you need to believe in yourself that much that I can go and do these great things and become a world champion. So you need to have sort of a little bit of being delusional to achieve that. So I think whether he's trolling or whether he's just delusional, I don't know. But he's doing his own thing and it's working for him.
What was genius was he had this super cool video made where obviously he got his belt back out of the box and was saying that he's still the champ. And then that got completely eclipsed by Merab's video of that little Sean O'Malley in a little car.
Oh, yeah.
Which was so good.
He actually had a pink Lambo.
Killing it at the moment.
So good.
Marab's doing so well with his social stuff. What a turnaround that has been, because there was a long time ago, well, not that long ago, a year or so ago, where we were all going, oh, the UFC don't like Marab. They find him too boring, blah, blah, blah. And a few good social media posts, and everyone's like, oh, we love Marab. He's great.
Crazy, innit? The fans turn so quickly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I even remember going back to Paddy before he beat Bobby Green. He was getting loads of shit online. Like most of the fans were half against him, and then the complete 180 they all did. Everyone was behind him. Then let's get him a fight with Islam. You know, like everyone was backing him. Then it's crazy to see how fickle the fan base are. So that's just, you've got to get used to that, haven't you? That's the nature of the sport. But yeah, I like Marab. I like Marab's character. I think he's a pretty funny guy, and he was just bouncing around the PI as well. I didn't really speak to him too much, but he just seemed like a nice kid. You know what I mean? He seemed friendly enough. So yeah, I like Marab.
Fantastic.
And it looks like he's probably going to fight Umar next. I mean, for me, as much as I think Marab is absolutely fantastic, I'm a big fan of Umar. I think he strikes really well, and obviously he's got the Nurmagomedov name, so you know the wrestling's good. What do you make of Umar Nurmagomedov? Do you think that he is champion after that? Well, if he fights Marab, basically, do you think he's champion after that, and do you think he's champ for a while?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to say because styles make fights. But I was a big fan of Corey Sandhagen. I think he's a really good fighter. I think he's one of the best in the world, and we saw what Umar was able to do to him. So again, it's stylistically, I feel like Umar is the better fighter technically. I feel like his grappling is superior to Marab's, but Marab's just got that cardio, that engine, and in those grappling exchanges, those wrestling scrambles, that is a big factor. Whoever can sort of outlast the other man. So we'll have to wait and see. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Umar was able to nullify all his grappling attacks, settle him and take dominant position, or keep it on the feet and pick him apart from range. So Umar's quite multifaceted in the sense that he's very good long range with his kicks, but then if you don't really want to close that distance to throw your hands, because once he gets a hold of you, he's got the Magomedov in him. So it's like, what do? You're catch-22, aren't you?
Yeah, so no, I agree with that. For me, Corey Sandhagen's one of my favourite fighters. I think he's one of the best bantamweights on the planet. For Umar to deal with him, I mean, again, it wasn't completely one-sided. The judges' scorecards were quite one-sided, but the fight was closer than that. But it was still a definite Umar win, and you're like, wow, this guy's, to do that to Corey, you've got to be so good.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I rate Corey super high as well, so I was impressed with that performance.
Yeah. And the other big story kind of coming out lately is that in a weird little kind of passing interview with John Jones, he seemed to say that the Stipe fight is going to be his last fight. Because of that, it looks like the fight between Stipe and Jones is what a lot of us all thought it was going to be, is sort of like a bit of a legends fight. It's a bit of fun. To me, the best heavyweight on the planet is not a part of that fight. Despite the fact that the belt's on the line, I don't believe that a 40-odd-year-old Stipe Miocic, after having 4 years out of the cage, is worthy of a title shot, especially coming off a loss to Ngannou. And I think the fact that Jones is picking to fight Stipe, which I do understand from a money point of view and all that stuff, I get it. But Tom's been the interim champ for a while, man. How do you feel like that whole situation has played out? Are you okay with it? And how would you deal with the heavyweight title going forward if Jones does retire? And assuming he does beat Stipe.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's tough. I agree with you in this. I think that Tom Aspinall is the best heavyweight on the planet. And I think that people will give me shit for saying this because John Jones isn't technically the GOAT of the sport, but I feel like time waits for no one, and he's sort of coming off a lot of injuries. He's had a crazy long career, and he's definitely going to go down in the history books as the greatest to ever do it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that right now he is the best heavyweight on planet Earth. And I feel like the sport's changing, it's evolving year after year. We're seeing technique is leveling up, and the heavyweights of today aren't what the heavyweights used to be. Like they're so much more athletic. Tom Aspinall moves like a welterweight, do you know what I mean? And he's a big, strong guy. He's so explosive. He's so well-rounded. He can do everything. I do believe he's the best heavyweight on the planet. Now, the way they're dealing with it, I don't really know, because also for John Jones and the resume he's had and the career he's had, I believe that he kind of should have a say in who he wants to fight. And if this is his sort of ride off into the sunset fight, I get it. But I also don't really like that, because it's kind of making it a little bit more like not scripted because he's still got to go and fight Stipe, but it's not legit, is it? Because the UFC has always been where the best fight the best. And if John wants to still hang around and call himself the heavyweight champ, the next best guy, or in my opinion, the best guy is Tom Aspinall. So you've got to make that fight. But I also saw something with Dana where people were saying he wants to get like a GOAT in the sport, kind of like Michael Jordan was for basketball, and I don't know the baseball player's name, but or like Tom Brady. They kind of want to make it more legitimate as a sport. So they want to kind of do that for John Jones. And that's why Dana's constantly like pumping into this John Jones sort of rhetoric. You know what I mean? So I can understand every side of it, but I would like to see Tom Aspinall against John Jones. That would be great to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll see what happens.
Do you think they just upgrade Tom to undisputed champ? Like, how do you think, like, if John Jones wins, says, thanks very much, I'm retiring now, does Tom's belt just get upgraded, do you think? And who would be next for him? Maybe Cyril Gane or someone like that?
Yeah. Is Cyril Gane fighting anytime? Is he? He's
No,
not.
He was supposed to be fighting Volkov, but
injured.
Volkov's out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. Yeah. I would say that you probably do upgrade his belt or just make a vacant title and have him compete for the vacant title. I don't know how they do it.
That feels harsh though, doesn't it? Because that is one of the things they could do. But you're like, Tom, you've defended that interim belt. You won that interim belt. We're now going to take that away from you. You can fight for this vacant, undisputed belt. It feels harsh.
Yeah, it does. And especially, I don't know how it works with the pay-per-view money. Like, if you're a champion, you get the pay-per-view points, and he's defended his belt now, so it should go up again, his pay. So I don't know the ins and outs of the business, how they do that. But I feel like Tom is, I don't want to say yards ahead, but I feel like he's pretty well ahead of the pack at heavyweight. So I don't really think it matters who they give him next. But Cyril Gane will be a good one. And I believe Tom gets that done pretty comfortably as well. So it's interesting to see how it all unfolds. But,
absolutely. And it's been super interesting watching your career unfold, Nath. And you've been really kind, mate. You've supported this show from the very early doors of it. You was one of our first guests when we set up the podcast, and you've always been kind and gracious enough to come back on when we've asked you. So thanks again for supporting the show. Thanks for coming on today, mate. And whoever your next opponent is, it's in the UFC, obviously, and we're super hyped to see that journey continue. And best of luck with everything moving forwards, mate.
Oh, it's right, boys. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate you giving me this platform to get myself out there. People can see a bit more of my personality as well when I do these type of long format chats. So thanks for the opportunity, and nice to speak to you both. So
it's always a pleasure, mate. It's always a pleasure.
Mate. Thanks very much.
We're going to press stop, but don't go anywhere.
Okay.